Okay, we'll go number 5, consent agenda.
Moved.
Moved, seconded. Call question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. And now we go. Business arising from the minutes. I don't believe there is any. Staff reports and other business. CEO verbal update.
Nothing, Chair.
We wore you out in the last round.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. 7.2, January 2023 Select Funds Report. Suzanne, coming in. Oh. Suzanne, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
We're on 7.2. Just the Select Funds Report.
All right.
Questions from anybody? Sounds good. Vivian? Go ahead.
Super small point. If you remember, Suzanne, we talked about that contribution to the chamber under Area B, General Select Funds. And we thought that the wording should be, because it's not a membership, it's like a contribution or seed funding or something like that, which is just a very small wording change. But I think we agreed that it was better not to be purchasing a membership. So I thought it was better not to reflect that in the report.
I see it. Yeah, we can just change that wording if you'd like. It just says membership.
And also I'm happy this isn't in the consent agenda. So thank you guys for making that change.
Okay.
Quick question for
Yeah, Tony?
Well, in the area D at the bottom of the list, there's a 2010. Sorry, 2019. I'll get it right in a minute. 2020, September 2020, $2,500 for the right of way for Jack Webster Bridge. That's kind of a long time ago. Do we need to pay that, or has it been paid elsewhere? Or? Yeah,
so we have been reviewing that, and the Jack Webster Bridge project is still ongoing. And it's potential that we received a grant and it's already been covered under the grant. So we're doing a final year-end review, and when we finalize that, we'll have the answer. But it's potential that we can move this to unallocated. We are still keeping it there just in case we need it for now.
Or you can just give it back to me and send the bill to Squamish. The bridge is in Squamish, so what the heck?
Just a question, has the 2023 funds been added into our numbers here, or are these 2022 numbers?
Yeah, that's still the December 2022 report, and it will be updated even further because the December interest hasn't been sent to us yet. So there'll be more interest posted for December in these December 2022 reports. And then next month, we'll bring that revision plus the January report. And that will show the 2023 additions for the the PILT amounts.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And one more question.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Suzanne, do I need a resolution to remove the 2019 allocation for Ring Creek Community Association? Do I need a resolution to remove that? Because they've done nothing and they're not going to do anything.
Yeah, so a resolution basically stating to repeal the 2019 February resolution. We might want to look up the actual wording on that resolution, but it was in February 2019, and then we can move that back to the unallocated balance.
I'd like to move that then, please.
Okay, moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, anybody? So we just need a motion to receive.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Now we go on to 7.3, which is 2023-2027 draft electoral area budgets.
Sorry about that. So I think to go over these, if the EAD committee is in agreement, I'll just share my screen and we can go over to show the agenda for everybody's view, so we can keep track of what page I'm on and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'll just share my screen. If I can figure that out. All right. So I'll just first talk about the assessment value changes. So these budgets that I prepared are using the 2023 completed roll, which was just released at the end of December. However, BC Assessments has acknowledged that there are some errors in the 2023 completed roll that they're going to be fixing, and they hope to have this corrected report in mid-January. And the issues are with the cooperative housing land values. They stated that they're being counted twice incorrectly. And unfortunately, I don't know how many cooperative housing land inventory we have in our areas. So these values will be updated with the February meeting. And hopefully there's not too many differences. I don't anticipate too many differences, but I don't know 100% how many of these cooperative land values we have. So looking at the changes from 2022 assessment to the 2023 assessment, all of the areas averaged about 10.91% of an increase. The two areas that are over this average are Area A and Area C. And so those areas will receive a little bit more of the requisition for this year, just because they are over that average, while the Area B and Area D services will receive slightly less of the requisition. All of the area requisitions that we're talking about today, all the EAD requisitions, are shared based on the assessment values that you see. So that's why there will be some shift, but not a huge shift. I'll also go over all the non-market changes next month's meeting. I haven't had the time to go over those yet. Basically, the non-market change is anything that's not market related. So new inventory, like new construction, that's what I'll be focusing on. But there's also little changes such as zoning changes, permissive tax exemption changes, subdivisions and things like that, that do affect the assessments, but really we want to look at the inventory changes because that basically is an increased base for requisitions. So the EAD budgets that we're going through today are listed here. Civic addressing, building inspections, elections, UBCM. That's a combined service for both of those items. Emergency planning, the select services, and the electoral areas community parks service, which will be ending when the individual area community parks are completed, which should be in 2023. I haven't completed those budgets yet, but this service will just be wound down this year. So looking at the requisition changes so far, these are just preliminary budgets, so these are apt to change still. The civic addressing has no requisition. The building inspections requisition is reduced 58% this year, basically due to the inventory, the revenue generated in 2022, but I'll get into that detail. And then elections UBCM is a small increase to $34,000. And the emergency planning requisition is 100% increase to $574,758. And I'll get into the details of that in a little later. So it's combined, the AD services show a 26.6% increase. This percent, is a little bit skewed. So I'm going to switch to the information page just on requisitions here and show you based on the tax rates. So the 2023 tax rates end up being a 17 cents on every $1,000 of assessment. So the change ends up being, 3 cents, 2 cents, 2 cents, but then per $500,000 of assessment, the change is $11.47 so far. These are still preliminary budgets. So this is where you get the 26.6%, just looking at the dollar value changes here. And so really the two main changes are building inspections being reduced and emergency planning being increased. I'll go back to my notes and go over the salaries changes. So 2023, I've estimated a 10% increase for CPI. I think this is high. It might be closer to 7 to 8, but it could be as high as 10. It's really an unknown at this point. It seems to be increasing quite dramatically at the end of 2022. So I'm waiting for the December 2022 Statistics Canada to post their BC-based CPI increase for December. And then once that's known, I'll update all of the salaries to be just that percentage for CPI. So that will be updated in February. Normally, we receive these statistics in a couple weeks. So salaries also include any incremental increases, and obviously the new positions we hired in 2022 show up as a full year of salary now. So there is that increase as well. Benefits are estimated at a 5% increase, and that's the extended and health and dental benefit premiums, and that's renewed in August. So we don't have that number. This is just an estimate that typically I use every year. The health and wellness benefit is shown back to the original policy amount of $500 per full-time equivalent, which FTE for short. The benefit was increased during COVID in 2021 and 2022 to $1,000 per FTE. And that was approved by the board, but we don't have a resolution this year as yet. So right now they're shown as the original policy amount. And I'll just stop for any questions at this point.
Any questions, anybody? No?
All right.
Oh,
Yes.
Vivian?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I'm just wondering, are we going to talk about keeping that health benefit at 1,000 versus 500? Is that something that will come up on our board agenda in the near future or not?
I plan on also putting this bullet in the board January
Okay.
budget
Very
cow
good.
meeting as well. And
That's great.
yeah,
That
but
would
we
be
can have discussion there.
nice to talk. Okay, thank you.
All right, so the 2022 forecast figures are not final. We're still receiving December invoices, so those are subject to change. There are some estimates within the current budgets for 2022. And all of the 5-year plans will be included next month as well. So I like to get the first month kind of drilled down, the first year kind of drilled down, and then add the next 5-year full plans. So the civic addressing budget, there's no requisition this year. It's using all of the available funding, which is a contingent on the projects throughout the year. We do have this new sign project that building and planning have been working on, but not a lot of uptake on that. But I'm just continuing to keep all of the available funding available to be spent. And we'll just carry that forward until this budget is not needed anymore. Or if there is bigger projects, we could requisition for this service in the future. So building inspections, there's a huge surplus carry forward this year of so far of 257,752, and this is due to the building permit revenue received surpassing the budget by 234,000. So it is also showing a little bit of savings and expenses as well to make up the full 257,000 surplus. It includes increased training and travel budgets for new staff as requested by the Director of Planning. It includes a large format scanner for building permits, for larger archival building permits to be scanned and digitized. It has so the operational surplus reserve for the service is at 366,000, and this is above the maximum recommended guidelines within our own reserve fund policy. So obviously we're not transferring any more to that reserve, and we could pull some from that reserve if we wanted to decrease requisitions even farther. So with the constituents and their property tax bills, all of these services show up under their area specific line item. So it'll show up as area A if you live in area A, and area B if you live in area B. So you won't see a big, huge increase for emergency planning and a huge decrease for building inspections, which is kind of a nice perk in a way because it all blends into one. So that is for discussion for the EAD. We can go through the building inspection budget in more detail if you'd like, but it really is just those items that are changing. And if the EAD wishes to reduce the requisition, there is that option.
Just a question. So it says here, pull up to 100,000 from reserve to reduce the requisition. So that looks good or is good this year, but then it says this may cause a spike in the requisition for 2024. So would it not be wise just to leave it alone?
That is an option too. So it really is just for discussion purposes. If we were to pull some reserve fund, say even 50,000 just to reduce the requisition this year, because it is a huge spike this year as well. So it's like, where do you want to have that spike, I guess? And in 2024, the emergency planning staff will already be at full complement this year. So it will just be the CPI increase and any other benefit increases in 2024 that you'll see. So really that spike is in 2023 in my mind, and it would just be kind of moving it slightly to 2024. So just for discussion purposes, and I'll go through to the next budget and we'll come back to that later.
Okay, thank you.
So the elections UBCM, this service will also be updated in February. The budget currently shows because we're still awaiting some invoices and we still have to bill the school districts for their election expenses. There are some estimates within this budget, but it will be finalized and then updated at the February meeting. So it's just a slight increase for this service so far. And I did do a 5-year plan just to ensure that the next elections we do have enough funding, because each year we transfer reserve for those elections, which happen every 4 years. So that in 2023, it shows a transfer to the elections reserve of 15,192, and that's to start building back that reserve. And the 5-year plan does show that there is enough funding for the 2026 elections. Any questions on that so far for elections UBCM?
No, I'm fine, everybody. I think it's fine. You're okay?
All right.
Okay.
And so for emergency planning, there is a current deficit carried forward of 66,280, and this is mainly due to the time allocation revenue that we budgeted in 2022 not being realized. And there's a few reasons for that. We're looking into the details currently and going to be revising that 2022 time allocation revenue, because with the changeover of staff, the director of protective services left and there was a little gap, and then we hired a new director of protective services. So there was a transition of learning and training that they weren't able to allocate their time like the past director was able to. So we're going to look at what was potentially missed with the new employees and allocating their time out to make sure that it's all allocated out to the services that they worked on in 2022. And then that allocation comes as a revenue into this service. So it's really important to get that right. So we're going to be drilling down into that and also looking at the 2023 time allocation revenue and what is the appropriate percentage to use. In the 2022 budget, they did use 40% of salaries. And of course, that wasn't realized. But in the 2023 budget, I've kept it at 40%. And we're going to basically review that number, though, to get a better idea of what salaries will be used for other services. So the other services would be all the fire department services, the 911 services, and general government for any kind of regional planning. So this this budget also includes training and travel for the new staff. So there is an increase there. Basically for training, we're striving to budget at about $1,500 per staff, so they have the appropriate training, and it's more important for the new staff that are still learning, and so we're making sure that there's enough training budget to be used. And then this includes 4 EOC laptop renewals. So we have specific laptops just for the EOC when there is an activation, and they are aging. So we're going to be replacing about 4 in 2023. It also includes carry forward projects from 2022 and also projects not yet applied for, but are anticipated to be applied for throughout the year. The emergency planning reserve is currently 65,188, and as per the reserve funds guidelines, this is just below the minimum recommended of 2 months of regular operating expenses, which would be 74,271, so just under $10,000. Sorry, just over $10,000. And that's all the points I wanted to discuss with the emergency planning budget. And any questions on that so far?
No, I don't believe so.
All right.
Okay.
And oh, sorry, Sal.
Yeah, on that service, when I look at the actual budget, and it, it if a regular person was to look at it, they'd be totally confused. So it would be nice to know what the grants are, like if somehow we can separate some of this of the income and expenses as far as the grants go, because in some of the places we have a placeholder for this and that and the other thing on the grant side to the actual what the costs are on the non-grant side of life. So I think when we get down to it, let's have just a closer look at it when we do that. Maybe it's something that we have in the documentation like you've had above, right? Because if the public was to look at this, they'd be lost.
Yeah, I struggle with that as well because I do want to show all the projects that they're working on because it's a large amount of projects that they deal with. So in essence, I don't want to hide the workload that that this emergency planning staff do accomplish each year. But at the same side, I understand that it is confusing to see and understand what really is this requisition based off of. So what I can state is this requisition is basically everything that's not with a project code here. So all of these project codes are the task codes here, this miscellaneous revenue, and these are generated by EMBC tasks. So these are direct funding for the EMBC tasks you see in expenses below with these same project codes. So those would be throughout here. So there's a lot of overtime, obviously, due to staff working on the tasks, but then there's also the special projects below that show additional, we still call them PEP tasks because it's shorter than EMBC, and that was what they originally called them, Provincial Emergency Program. Now it's EMBC, but so that's what these are here. And then the grants are also covered based on the notes here. So some of these grants, we do require some operational SLRD funds, but we're using reserve funds to cover them. So they don't actually hit this budget as well. So for example, this SP 180 is an old 2021 project that finished, and it shows that there was a 10% reserve used for that. So all of these are also recovered 100%. So the surplus obviously is not covered, so that is part of the requisition. The salaries are part of the requisition. These salaries here, though, for the CRI Smart Fund, those are being recovered. So it's just this main salary line here that's not covered. And the benefits, same thing. This is not covered by a grant. However, these amounts with the CRI, sorry, are recovered by that CRI grant that you'll find above. So employer health tax also not recovered by a grant. This is by recovered by the requisition. Training and travel are also requisition. Advertisements, requisition. Communications, courier, office supplies, all of this is by requisition, including the overhead and the legal and the contracted services and operating costs. And then all of these below special projects are all recovered by grants.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking these questions is that we're increasing the requisition by 100% this year, which is quite a bit, right? So if there was yeah, it's hard to go through it the way it is and actually figure out what the requisition is actually for.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Yeah.
here, but yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not for me. It's for the public,
Right.
you know. And one of the things that we want to do is make sure the public understands why we're having a 100% increase.
Hmm. All right.
I don't know what the other three area directors feel about this, or is it just me?
No, much the same as you, Sal. It is very confusing, and I know that any increase in taxes, I get questions. So the easier it is for me to answer those questions, the better it is for me. So
Yeah.
The main increase is salaries and benefits. And that is due to the new hires in 2022 coming on as a full year salary for 2023.
So what we have to work on then, and maybe we can talk about this at some point, is basically justifying that to our constituents. Why have we got a regional fire chief, for example? I'm happy that we do. I think it's necessary and so on. But that's the kind of question that we will have to deal with. You know, what's the benefit to our community? Well, we need to be able to tell people what that is. So
I think it's a matter of messaging that we're capacity building in an organization that has worked through years and years and years of
Being
understaffing
way
and,
understaffed.
and limited capacity that, you know, has led to the pileup of work that hasn't.
okay.
Through the chair, a couple of thoughts. One, the reasoning behind that, the logic for it, as was just described, should have been clear when the board approved those additions. So that's happened.
Yep.
That was public. It was there. I would suggest that the other piece to this is being clear about how we communicate performance management in the organization. So today, we're not saying we're going to accomplish 1, 2, 3, 4. We're not coming back and reporting on progress on 1, 2, 3, 4. So therefore, it's difficult to accept the public, let alone the board, to really understand the value in any position in the organization. So I would say this is a question of how we manage our business and how we communicate progress on our business, which we don't do right now. And the last observation I would make is, as was indicated at the last board meeting, we recognize, and Suzanne has recognized for quite some time, that the nature of a regional district budget is challenging to communicate to a board, especially to those that are also working in the municipal space. And it's challenging to communicate to the public. And that Suzanne and her team have not had the time to spend on looking at different ways to communicate and highlight this a very important change or piece of info as identified by Director Demare. But we hope to do that going forward. So we're not going to be able to fix formatting this year through the budget process. This is very much a work with the board to get the budget completed. But we certainly acknowledge that there's room to think about how we communicate, and some good examples out there in other regional districts that have the capacity to do that. Some very interesting communication tools, not just now when the budget's coming to the board, but through the preparation of the budget.
Yeah, if I could speak, I totally agree with, you know, this one tax service is so important. You know, we see what's going on in California, and if that stream was a little higher and was hitting us, we'd be right back into it again. So this is an important one. And yes, we did approve those positions, and I agree. But, you know, like Tony said, somewhere in our communications, we need to, you know, state something that this is why that 100% increase is, whether it's we do it on our own with our constituents or whatever. But if we do have any questions, at least we've got something that we can answer back with. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it's obviously very important to get the message out to your constituents, but I think the way to do it too is with our yearly area newsletter. We can explain stuff in that newsletter of why we're doing things, like say the regional fire chief. I mean, there's a really good example of why did we do this? Well, there's new regulations that have come from the province. We didn't have anybody in position to oversee any of this, help the departments. They're all volunteer for the most part. You know, and people have very limited time and stuff. So we can more than justify hiring that individual. So I think back to our area newsletters that we put out, a lot of this stuff can be put in those newsletters to keep people up to date. And maybe we should be doing those newsletters twice a year as things progress. You know, and we can get those out, and the funding can come from the area directors if need be. It's not a huge amount of money. So I think that's really important to get that out. Tony.
I wasn't criticizing anything that we've done or what's here in front of us. I was just highlighting the task that we have, especially around tax time. Yeah, I mean, I could argue that what we need is another person whose sole job is to do social media. And keep up all the little Facebook things and whatever. I don't know the names of some of the other things, but that's how the communities communicate. You know, they've all got Facebook pages, and so. But to do that, it takes time. It takes an understanding of. So we need a young person, but it takes time as well. It's not
just one. I'll add one thing. So when I was on that fire commissioners panel for the new regulations, we were talking, and you know, when I said that we, the regional district, had just hired a regional fire chief, and we were so excited, you know, there was other regional districts, they had hired 5 or 6 positions to get training, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there going, wow, we just hired one, and these folks are hiring 5 or 6. So, you know, we're behind the 8 ball sort of thing. So we can more than justify, and we can point to these other regional districts saying, look, these folks are obviously ahead of the curve. We're trying to catch up to the curve. So, great.
That's Chair. I just I really like this conversation because I think it's an important, to me, an important area that we need EAD committee, but ultimately board support in, and that's recognizing that we have customers, and our customers vary based on what service they receive. But any customer should be able to know what they're getting for what they pay for. That's a pretty basic premise, and public sector organizations need to be able to answer that mail. To do that, we need a plan. We need something to communicate to the public. We then need to report progress on that plan, and we're not quite there. And so we as an organization should be able to provide electoral area directors and directors, the board, with those tools to have that conversation with the public. And so I hope there's this much interest in that question at the board meeting coming up when we hope to discuss performance management, which is the system that would allow us to do this.
I really like the comment there of customers. Like I've been saying that since I got here. Like when people come in the door to come here to get a building permit or whatever, we have to treat them as our customers. They're our constituents, but they are our customers. They're coming here to get a service. And it's no different than you or I going into a store or restaurant or whatever. We like to have proper service and be treated accordingly. And I think that's just so important. So yeah, excellent. That's where we need to go, and we need to have that mindset that's what those folks are. They're our customers, and we have to treat them accordingly. So yeah, good stuff. Sal,
Yeah, I like the idea that you made on the property tax guide. I've actually got it right. If I can get it onto this computer, and I can't, unfortunately, but that's why. I've got my copy right in my hand from last year. And I think that's an excellent place to put something on this major increase that we're going to have in this tax service.
thank you. Carry on.
No, that's good.
All right, I'll just
Vivian,
oh, sorry.
you still there?
So I'll just mention also that we have a new communications tool that we're going to be using in the future. So that's bang the table, and I'll be for next budget year. We don't have the capacity this year, but I'll be doing more of exactly what you're talking about, Sal, just showing more of details of the overall increase in information, where their tax dollars are going, showing, the graphs and things like that, we currently don't have the capacity to do, but I'm excited to start that for next year. Yes.
Yeah, excellent, very good.
Okay. And so the final budget is the EA Community Parks budget, the 3,000 cost center that we will be discontinuing now that we have the each specific area regional parks budgets services. And so there is the option, because some of these reserve funds within the community parks are statutory reserves, which means they're developed by bylaw and specific to this service. And that is the capital reserve bylaw 810 that has an amount of 5,111 and 4 cents remaining in it. And then there's a small surplus carry forward due to the increased interest revenue in 2022. So together there is about $7,000 that we could send back to the constituents with a negative requisition. So they allow through eTax BC to do this if there's any services closing that remain, that still remain a surplus that you can't transfer. So basically, because of the legislation, this statutory reserve can't be transferred to another reserve. And so we either spend it within this reserve or we send it back via a negative requisition. So I just wanted to put that as a proposed question for discussion.
Tony,
I don't think we should be looking for an excuse to spend it. There's nothing in front of us right now. So I would be in favor of a negative requisition.
yeah, and I would also feel that way. Vivian, go ahead.
That strikes me as quite a bit of work for a very small amount of money, and people would get this communication that, here's a little bit of money back that we're not spending on parks. Oh, by the way, we've got some new park bylaws that we're introducing. Like, it's just kind of a mixed up message to me, thinking of my generally not very well informed constituents, but just that's I don't think we should make up something to spend it on. So I think there's probably good things we could spend it on that are related to what we're doing here around parks. Does it have to be divided in a certain way? Like, what are the kind of conditions around that money, if you don't mind, Suzanne?
It has to be spent in area D, Vivian.
It could be for any parks reason, and the EAD together would have to approve it. So it doesn't have to be split 4 ways, but that's typically how we've been trying to maintain these services, to make it fair for all areas. I don't know if that helps.
Sorry, if I understood what you said before, we couldn't just divide this by 4 and put it into our new our new park budgets. We can't do that. We have to spend it within this budget.
That's correct.
Okay, okay.
Tony,
Could I suggest this then, that rather than, I understand what Vivian is saying. Rather than sit here now trying to think of some way we could spend it, can we defer this decision until the next EAD? And we take the time between now and then to come up with some way of spending the whatever it is, 7,100. And if we haven't managed to do that by the next EAD, then ask Suzanne to put it into a negative requisition. Need a resolution for that? I'll move that.
yeah, I'll just ask a question, Suzanne. So we couldn't divide this 4 ways and spend it on something in our area in parks that's like now? Because say, for instance, I've got some maintenance issues at the Anderson Lake docks, which are not, it's not big, it's maybe $1,000, $1,200, but instead of using, say, select funds, I could then use this area C's portion of this. Is that possible?
I would say yes. If we wanted to do something like take the 7,000, divide it by 4, and then if there is an area specific park expense, we could take that off. And if there's some service areas, say for area A, you didn't have a specific park expense, we would just send that portion back as a negative requisition. That's possible. We don't have to send the full amount. You could send a portion if you wanted to fund something within this service.
So as Director Rainbow said, could we then just sort of discuss this with ourselves, I guess, and come back at the next EAD with a specific plan for each of our areas, the amount of money that we would have? Because like I say, I already know what I could spend Area C's portion on would be that maintenance deal at Anderson Lake. So that's taken care of, and I'm sure that everybody else could come up with something too, specific to their area. So would it be all right? I see your hand, Vivian. Would it be all right if we did that, discussed it and brought it back to the next EAD meeting?
Yes, definitely. And
Vivian,
just
Vivian and
with
then Sal.
the caveat that these numbers, although pretty set at this point, still can change.
Yeah.
But so far, I'm just gonna, there's $77,080 divided by 4 is about $1,770 per area. 1,770.
Thank you. Yeah, Vivian?
So in area B, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because of course we don't have any real functioning regional parks, but we do have some land now on Anderson Lake that's designated regional park, and there's some work planned there. And so if I just asked Allison, I mean, we know we want to do some invasive species work there, for example. That's something we'd like to get started on already. Could that money be used for that? To just transition to that, if that was something that staff agreed with as a good idea?
Yes, definitely. So
Okay.
I would adjust the 2023 budget to show these new projects, and hopefully it will be fully spent by 2023, and there would be no need to do a negative requisition in that case.
Be fully spent by?
So by the end of the year, I would change the budget so far. I'll just go to that 3,000 budget to show you what I mean. All right, so right now I just have no, the surplus carry forward, but it being fully spent here. So I would just separate it out by projects. And a little bit of time allocation here makes up the remainder. So if it was something that Allison had to be a part of, we would have to have a little bit of time allocation as well. Just to keep that in mind.
So sorry, is that a question that I should just proceed and ask Allison about that? So
Yeah,
that
and
I-
ask her
Yeah.
an estimated time that it would take to complete the project, and then that expense together with Allison's time would have to come out of your portion.
Got it. Thank you.
Sal, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting that we only have really two parks right now, and they're both in Braylor. One is the church, and one is the old museum site. And we don't have any projects other than the church. Definitely needs operational funds. So something that we're going to have to talk about if we're going to take our portion of it. And the other question I have is, so those funds were requisitioned at one time from all 4 areas?
The funds were requisitioned many, many moons ago. This is back before my time, I think. This is like 2004. And then just building interest. So it was, you know, a larger amount. It was spent on items, and then there was a remainder left, and it was building interest. The other thing I have to mention is it should be capital projects, because it is a capital reserve fund.
Okay.
So as soon as you said operations, I'm like, oh, right, it's not meant for operations.
So that might rule out invasive species, but signage would be okay. So do I get that right?
Yeah, so any kind of capital or equipment, or, you know, any kind of picnic tables or benches, things like that for parks.
Okay, everybody's
Okay.
good? I think we can figure that out.
So we'll bring some proposals for the next EAD.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, is that the end then of your presentation?
That's the end, yes.
Okay, so I just need a motion to receive.
May I just ask, did we make a decision? Oh, you're just making us aware of the surplus in the one area and so forth. We're not making a decision on that. You're just making us aware of it, right? That,
Yeah, so these are options that the EAD can think about. And of course, we're bringing these budgets back in February and in March. But the February meeting, I'll be announcing it as a public consultation meeting. And so usually just this January meeting is getting, you know, the basics together, and then it'll be updated for the February meeting. And I can bring those options for discussion to that meeting as well. So it'll be continued in the February meeting.
Thank you. So the resolution moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where are we at? 12:05. So now we go to director's reports. 8.1 is lunch and learn realtor event, Squamish. TAN. Director Rainbow.
Yeah, this was a great event. It was organized by Squamish Can. They had people from the different ministries there, and basically an audience of realtors. And the message was, if you're selling, you know, representing a seller in the agricultural land reserve, here are the rules. And here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. And because there are plenty of realtors that didn't fully understand all that. So the District of Squamish provided the venue and furniture and all that sort of stuff. And I said I'd come try and cover the lunch.
Nice.
So that's what that is.
I would like to do that here too with the realtors. That would be really, we talked about it so many times. Crystal Tambrink is the person to talk to. Okay,
Because she or Sarah McJanet on the planning staff or Claire, Claire and
Yeah.
Sarah worked on that.
right on.
So, but anyway, I'll move that, please.
Okay, I'll second it. So moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 8.2, UNESCO biosphere signage, Director Rainbow.
Yeah, I made a mistake with the original motion, which wasn't very clear and was causing problems. I was trying to save staff time and I created more work, but I also made an error in the printed agenda here. Well, first of all, let me move that we rescind the original motion, which was that we grant $10,000 from electoral areas, general select services, cost center 2,900. So I move that we rescind that.
Move, seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Okay,
Thank you. So the new motion then, which in your agenda says $10,000 be granted from Area D select funds, that's supposed to be, or it should have been, electoral areas, general select services, because that's what we agreed to do. And the difference between the two motions is that this one enables Suzanne to send a check for 10 grand directly to Ruth Simons of the Biosphere Initiative Society, and they will manage the whole thing and either provide invoices. Well, they'll provide invoices. So if they spend more than 10, that covers it. If they spend less than 10, then they have to reimburse. So we're expecting a report at the end of it all. So I will move that second and third that.
And also with the removal of with funding support from electoral area D recognized. In all,
So where does that say?
just the last portion, because that wording that starts with funding support from electoral area D. Recognized in all related promotional.
yeah, so you
materials.
want that to go into the
So
next
I'll write
one.
that into the next one.
Well, if this is coming out of the general select services, then we would take that wording out because that's the wording.
Oh, right. To change that wording to
We don't-
support from the SLRD. That's what it said in the original motion.
So same word, sure, yeah. So we'll move that same wording down, yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
okay, thank you.
Okay, moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 8.3, Area D Secondary School Scholarship.
So, sorry, so I just had that as the first stat, the next stat.
That upon completion,
So should that wording have been up to 10,000 because you want receipts submitted, or you just want to provide?
It's gonna be more than 10 grand. By the time I finish, it's gonna be more.
Okay, so,
Just send them 10 grand.
okay, and then do you still want the report?
Yeah, I think we should get a report from them.
Okay, but not receipts.
Well, you get receipts as well. I thought I put them in there. Yeah, report including receipts.
Right, so, but usually if we're requiring, okay, so you want,
It's
it's
less than,
10,000, it's up to 10,000 on provision of receipts.
no, if it's less than $10,000, then he needs a receipt and the reimbursement to be over. If it's $8,000, he wants $2,000 back.
Yeah, I'm trying to make this easier for staff. If we just send them a check for 10 grand. And then when the project's done, Ruth will send us a report. And it will say, we spent $11,000. And here are the receipts. That will be part of the report. And if they only spend $9,000, here are the receipts, and here's a check for the balance. Okay. So is that another motion then that?
Yes,
Okay.
as you have set up.
Okay,
in the agenda.
Okay.
I'll move the final back.
Seconded. Moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Great, thank you.
Okay, 8.3, Area D Secondary School Scholarship, Director Rainbow.
Every year I've been providing scholarships to, or we have been providing, I shouldn't say we have been providing scholarships to Whistler Secondary and Howe Sound Secondary. And every year they call me and ask me if I'm still interested and new motions and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, seeing as it's the beginning of the term, I have no intention of changing my mind on doing this. So I crafted this motion to cover the whole term. That $4,000 be granted to Howe Sound Secondary School for each of the 4 years in 2023 through to 2026. And the sum of $2,000 be granted to Whistler Secondary School for each of the 4 years from 2023 to 2026 as scholarship contributions. The criteria for those scholarships, by the way, is preference be given to Area D residents. But if there are no qualified Area D residents, then it can go to residents of the municipality.
Okay, moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Yeah, thank you.
And now we go to 8.4, Electoral Area Director Stipends, Director Rainbow for discussion.
Give me 5 minutes,
Yeah.
2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yeah, I'll leave the room for 2 minutes.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay,
Recess?
we'll have a recess for 5 minutes. Okay, we're just gonna break for lunch for half an hour. And then we will come back to item 8.4.
Okay.
As
Sounds good.
lunch is here. That's okay with you, Sal and Vivian? Okay, we'll see you in a half an hour.
Right.
1:45, resume.
What did Vivian say?
She just asked if it was 1:45.
Yeah.
We come back. Yes.
1:45 is good.
Enjoy your lunch.
Who's showing, Vivian, are you selling another calendar?
I wanted to let you know
Ah,
that there's a page, Lillooet News, of the people that jumped in Seton Lake.
were you in the front? Were you leading the way? No?
Pardon me?
Were you leading the way?
I was just one of the cheerleaders,
Ah,
but it was cold. But there's like 40 people that jumped in. It was terrific. And it's
I don't know what to say.
fundraising for the pools. It's a good thing.
There, didn't you?
Oh,
You did
yeah.
the polar bear plunge in
Yeah.
1 Mile Lake.
We used to go down there and cut the hole. I'd get a guy to come down with an excavator, you know, and break the ice to make a hole for people to go and submerge themselves. Anyway, okay, we're ready to resume. 12:53, here we go. We are now on, well, we're back. We're now on 8.4, electoral area director stipends, Director Rainbow, for discussion.
yeah, I just thought that, you know, as I've said in this little, in my notes here, I brought this up at the end of last term.
Yeah.
And at the time, honestly, didn't think I was going to be sitting here now. But I thought I'd bring it up before I left, just to get it on the table for discussion. I just wanted us to, I want to find out if there's any agreement, you know, if people are telling me, no, this is a lot of rubbish, then I guess I'll just back off and leave it alone. But I'm suggesting that our stipends be increased from around 30 that they are right now to around 45 to 50, somewhere in that range. It's a huge increase. If you look at an individual, if you look at the fact that there are 4 of us, we're talking $60,000 to $80,000 per year over the whole region, so it's not that huge an amount. The idea that I have is that if you increase the stipend so that it's more like a salary, a part-time salary, then we'll have a better chance of recruiting people to run for office. I know from conversations I had in the months towards the end of the last term, I'd get reactions like, well, you're nuts doing that for that much money, you know, crazy. No, you know, I'm working for $45,000, $50,000 a year right now, part-time, but if I take this on, then I've got to give up that job. I won't be able to do both. So I've got to give up that job with the sort of pension benefits I've got as well, and take a job that pays a lot less. No, I'm not prepared to do it. And I know, just go back in history, in the 80s, if you look back at what MLAs were paid in this province, it was a similar kind of situation. I had conversations with other school principals at the time, because it wasn't unusual that people would come to a school principal and say, would you be prepared to run for MLA? And most of us, you take a look at it, you're taking a 25 to 30% cut in salary, losing your pension benefits, and having to travel, set up, you know, it was just financially, you just couldn't do it. So I look around at this electoral area. You see Mr. Grey hair sitting up there in area A. You have that young lady in area B, but you and I, Russell, are so getting pretty past ourselves by date, you know. And when I go to provincial conferences, go to the EAD meeting, I know I'm in the EAD meeting because everybody's got grey hair.
Yeah.
You know, you rarely meet a younger person there. And part of it is the fact that people can't afford to do it. So I think that it would enlarge the pool from which we could attract people. I think it would, we would then stand a chance of getting some younger people involved, and I think that's important. And I think it's also important to make the job available to that wider pool of people. It really isn't. The way it's set up at the moment, we exclude a large number of our residents. And I put that personal example in there of what it would mean to me. You know, I'm certainly not doing this for the money. You know, I could make this much money in a much shorter period of time by doing, even if I went back to teaching, and there's other things I could do. So I can only do this because I've got a secure pension, and a place to live, and car, and I'm comfortable. Not rich, but I'm comfortable. So that's what I'd be interested in hearing what other people have to say.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, I'm in the same position as you are. You know, I've got a pension, all that kind of stuff. And in talking to younger people like your age, they just look at me and go, what the hell? Like, why would I do the same thing? Now, I've got one young, your age guy that lives up the valley, has done very well in his businesses and all that stuff. And he's actually, we've been talking already for like, this will be my last term. So we were talking about who's going to take this on, right? And that's what he said too. He said, like, for what you guys make now, and I know the amount of people that call you, the amount of stuff you go through. He says, I wouldn't do it. But if it was more financially, you know, I guess viable, I would think about it. So, you know, that is something for sure. But there's another young lady your age up in Divine, who I think would be a really good individual too, right? And trying to convince these folks is, yeah, it's challenging, but we've got 4 years to make the position more attractive to a wider range of people, for sure. So I think that's very viable. Sal or Vivian?
Yeah, I totally agree. I've already had conversations with a couple of younger people in our area regarding this, and that's where, you know, I went searching and I finally found a roles and responsibility for electoral area director from the Cowichan Valley Regional District, and in it, you know, it really states what it is. I've also just done up a Word document of all the various committees, tables, groups, so on and so forth. So all the meetings that I attend, and it's substantial. And so as an electoral area director, you really get engaged in quite a bit. I know a lot of it is dependent on each director, how engaged they want to get. I mean, as you guys know, with the road situation that we have up here in Area A, it takes up a lot of my time, and it's constant on the safety side of our roads. So I think near the end of our term that we need to do something to make it better for other constituents to come forward. It was pretty sad that we never had any elections in the 4 areas this year. So yes, I'm totally in favor of looking at it and moving forward with something down the road.
Well, one thing you just said, and one thing I think is if we're going to move this forward, we need to move it forward at the beginning of our term, not at the end of our term, because we want to attract people to be thinking about it now. So as we go through this term, they're getting ready to either participate or whatever. But if you wait till the last minute again, people are going to be going, forget it. We're in the same boat, right? So we need to.
That's a good point.
And
Yeah, Tony.
I know that when we brought this up at the board table, sort of we'll add it onto the HR survey of what other regional districts do, which is fine. I don't mind knowing what other people do, but I don't want to. I'm not proposing that we go for an average across the province,
Yeah.
or that we stay within 10% of what the average is. You know, if we believe that this is critical to widening that pool, attracting better talent. You know, they got this, as my brother said when I was talking to him about this. He says, "Yeah, well, they pay peanuts, they get monkeys." So so I agree. I think we should do it sooner rather than later, so that we can then talk authoritatively about that. And I'd even like to, I've got a really good alternate right now who is not interested in taking over the position. But if I found somebody that was interested, I know I could talk to Leslie and say, look, I think maybe I could change my alternate and get somebody involved at that level.
Yeah.
And I, in the last year, I have my alternate come to meetings more than I would actually need to, if you like, just to make sure that they were bridging and getting ready to. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. Maybe if I got 3 or 4 people interested, that wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
But that would be lovely. If 3 or 4 people interested, you actually have an election.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked to Jan about it too. Like, she's really, really good, and she's sort of my sounding board on a lot of stuff. But she's 70 years old now too. So, and she has said just what you said. She'll step aside any time to bring somebody younger in, just to give them the feel of the thing, right? And like you say, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, right? But anyways, that's.
Maybe I can ask Kristen a question. How often can I change an alternate?
We can do it whenever.
So if I had, say, 3 people interested, I could have them do a year each or something? Or I don't know whether that's possible.
I mean, I have to look at the specific
Yeah,
sections.
okay.
But
I don't think you'd want to be
leave it at your.
too obvious like that. But anyways, it's something definitely to think about. But I think we need to, get serious about this sooner than later.
Maybe appointing as an alternate, I wasn't really thinking there, that doesn't make sense. But if there are people that are interested to drive up here with me and sit in there and watch a meeting, that does make sense.
Hey, then we get
Get an audience.
get an audience. Yeah, good
I
stuff.
mean, there's probably 3,000 people watching right now. But,
Vivian. What have you got to say?
Yes, Chair Mac. I did think I wanted to do a little bit of footwork on this in the sense of just asking some other people what they're getting paid, but I didn't get anywhere on that, except I know that the district of Lillooet pays an astonishingly low sum. I was pleasantly surprised at the rate of pay when I started into this position. But I also feel sort of along the lines of what Tony's saying, pretty privileged. I came into it, I have a pension from Health Canada and other work, and I'm sitting in a pretty comfortable place. It would be not a manageable job to share with another. So for me, this is a part-time position, but the hours are kind of unpredictable and inconvenient to juggle with another job, depending on the other job. So, and certainly difficult to juggle with things like small children. I could see that. So I agree with the idea of an increase, although I would hate for someone to be doing it just for money. There's a amount of public service involved in doing these positions as well. So an increase for sure, but not too much of an increase, is sort of where I got to. Thank you.
Jen,
Something that someone I have a ton of time for in local government says we starve our elected officials. And it's not because we're not valuing the work that electoral areas do. But there has been sort of this mindset of, this is just a couple hours off the side of your desk, you know, and that, unfortunately, you get the amount of dedication and time that someone has the capacity for. And so you'll have people that just show up for board meetings and do nothing in between. And then you'll have people like the four of you who are 40 hours a week and probably more sometimes, and everything in between. And so to say that the job is worth this much is a really tough thing to do. And it's true about municipal directors or municipal counselors in communities. There's a wide range of hours that people put into this kind of work. And it's sort of the nature of, unfortunately, the type of people that come to this work are usually people that are dedicated to their community, and they would do it even if they didn't get paid. And that's all well and good, except that it's not realistic if you want to be able to have a diversity of voices around this table. Something that we did in Whistler in 2 terms ago was said, we don't want to vote for a pay increase for ourselves. And so we moved it so that the reevaluation of the wages and benefits was in the last 6 months of the term, so that you're voting for the next people, so that you can make it attractive, as you all are saying. And so I would suggest that that would be a good starting off point for when to reevaluate the director's remuneration bylaw. Another thing that I'm hearing from all of you is that you'd like to show the work that you do so that people see how much is involved, because most people don't understand what you do. And I think there's probably some pretty creative ways that we could, you know, unofficially not using staff resources, but show how much you do and show how much you do and show the kinds of things that you work on, so that you have people who might be interested go, oh, that, you know, cutting ribbons and talking to constituents and understanding budgets. And those are a lot of skills that I have and could bring to the table. And other people would go, oh, that's a lot of work. I have a job and I don't want to put my career on hold for 4 years. And so I think it's really important that people have a realistic view of what you do, what we all do. So there's probably some good communications things that you guys could do, we could all do in advance of June of 2026.
This is Sal. Just to your point, Jen, I do newsletters and I get them out, so everybody knows what's going on all the time. And but on the topic of remuneration, if we were to pass something this year and have it effective at that time, then everybody knows right up front. So we could have it effective whether it's the last 6 months or whatever, or the last year, then everybody already knows that this is what the wages are going to be. So I'd rather see something like that, because I'm like the rest of you. I'm not here for the money for sure. And but other people might be. So we have to make it attractive.
I'm fine with what Sal was saying. As I said, I initially brought this forward when I thought I wasn't going to be around. And don't say in front of my wife that I'm here for the money, because she would think that's quite a joke. But there are some people when we say we may attract people who would do it for the money, that's not really what I'm saying. That they would be able to afford to do it
Yeah,
if we can.
Caribou Regional District pays $11,000 a year.
Caribou Regional District?
Yeah,
Really?
that's not a lot of money.
No,
So you're doing a full-time job or you've got other means to pay your bills. And that's okay if the expectation is very clear that it's an $11,000 job. And so that's, you know, I think those are and every area is a different cost of living. Maybe
that's true as well.
so.
When I first looked at this position and talked to people in the neighbourhood, it was pitched to me as, yeah, you've got sort of 3 meetings a month, you know, and a couple of hours a week. You know, so you get a little stipend for that, you know, 15 grand, something like that, which is what it was at the time. And I thought, well, that sounds okay. But no, that is not what the job is. Yes. And for me the minute I start talking about what the job is, people are going, oh, no, thank you.
yeah.
So,
Well, and it's just a level of, you know, you get people phoning you up, venting on you, and, you know, and other people know that, and when they hear that, they just go, how do you deal with that stuff?
yeah.
You know, I wouldn't do that for any amount of money, blah, 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 right? Yeah, just let them vent and then carry on. But anyways, so Vivian,
Just having set the first maternity or parental leave precedent for regional districts in BC, I'm perfectly happy to be out of the range of normal with the salaries as well. I do think that we have a very talented population to draw from for these positions. So if paying more helps, then I'm all for it. I have a couple of young candidates looking at Area B that I'm enthusiastic about. Yeah.
Well, we want to do it soon enough to give people a chance to shout and scream and give us an opportunity to justify what we want to do. But you know, as Sal said, if we want to pass something now, I presume we're able to do that with effective at some point in the future.
yeah, I don't see why not.
Kristen, can we do that?
We would be able to make a recommendation to the board, but I have another question first, because if I understand it, is what the municipal directors get paid connected at all to what the electoral area directors get paid, or are those completely independent?
Well, we pay a councillor, a municipal director gets an amount from the SLRD, but I don't think it's tied to
About 50%, I think. No, Kristen.
I think it's a separate thing.
Okay, if it's not linked, then that's an irrelevant question.
No, they get their municipal salary or whatever you want to call it. And then they get the regional district one on top of
On
it.
top of that, yeah.
Right?
So the Squamish councillor would be getting close to 60 grand
With the two.
for the two. And
And same with you guys then?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I doubt that they do twice as much work as us. I'd find that hard to believe.
Different.
It is different, I agree, yeah.
Well, I think we should move ahead with putting some numbers together just to present and then just go from there.
So do we want a resolution from this committee now to go to the board for discussion, or do we want to think about it over the next month and come up with?
Yeah, let's think about, I would say, let's think about it over the next month, how we want to approach this
Okay.
and bring it back to our February meeting.
To this February
Yeah.
meeting and then go to the board from there?
Yeah, go to the board after
Yeah,
that.
that works.
Because we got, what, 3 more months for budget? January, February, March, into March. Yeah,
Yeah, I would suggest that it's a nice runway to building up the budget to be able to increase the salaries. Maybe not for this year.
well, what you could
Most
do
of what
is, you could say you want to increase it by $15,000. But you do it over the course of the term.
Yeah.
So 5,000,
Yeah.
5,000, 5,000. Do it in increments.
Yeah, rather than. big-
Yeah, well, yeah. And then once you get to our last year, then it's in place.
I like the sound of that. Thank you.
It's in the next 2.5 weeks. If Sal and Vivian really send me some ideas, and I'll write it into a little report for sort of based on some of the things I've
Yeah.
said, and bring it back to the next EAD.
Yeah. Is that okay, Vivian and Sal?
Vivian said thumbs up.
Thank you.
So if you have any ideas, anything specific you want me to include in there, just flip me an email.
So how do we want to just receive this?
I believe you're just gonna bring back another director's report, is that? Or do
Yeah.
you want a resolution?
You know, resolution to say that the committee will feed things to me and I'll bring back a report next time. So I'll move that.
Okay,
And that would be a recommendation to the board. I believe, because. Or do you not want that?
not
No, I
the
think
board
I think
yet.
it's gonna come back to EAD and then it's gonna go to the board. So I guess I'm just looking for a resolution that approves that I will do that, rather than it's just me doing it.
All right.
Or receive. Or receive, well,
Or receive.
okay,
So let's receive.
okay, that's fine.
Okay, so motion to receive, moved and seconded. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
Meanwhile, you will send me things and I will do.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, number 9.1, correspondence for action. Southern Interior Local Government Association, SILGA, call for resolutions for 2023 SILGA AGM and convention. So that is more for Sal and Vivian, correct?
Yeah.
So we just would receive this then. Sal, go ahead.
These resolutions have to be into SILGA by the 24th of February, which is the Friday. And we have our last board meeting before that on February 22nd. So me and Craig have been talking about the Ministry of Transportation and coming up with a plan to try to get some information off of them. So we'll try that first, and I'll be bringing a resolution to the board, hopefully in the January meeting, to try to do that. But by the time February 22nd comes around and we haven't got anything, then I'll be preparing a resolution that for approval to go to SILGA and then to UBCM. So that's one of them. The second one is that ground granted mineral claim issue that we've got, not only here in the valley, but throughout BC. And I've been working with the gold commissioner, and hopefully eventually I'll get a report from him, because there's a move, they're actually reviewing it. They're having a First Nations review of the whole mineral act, and he has to submit a report. So I will be privy to that report because it'll be public. So those are the two that I'm working on, one with Marty and one with the gold, ground granted mineral claims. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything, Vivian? Okay. So we just need a motion then to receive this. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, motion to receive, moved and seconded, call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.2, request for funding, Pemberton Youth Soccer Association soccer goals. Request funding toward Boston View soccer goals, 14,000 Dendorf Park Fields. So I'll explain this. So what's happened is they're getting 2 goals, obviously, and through their request to Peevis, the maximum you can get is $15,000. So that'll pay for 1 goal. But we need 2 goals. So I've said that I will put forward the money to pay for the 2nd goal from Area C select funds. So that's what I'm proposing here.
That's Pemberton Sports Fields,
Yeah, the new soccer fields.
and Area C is putting some money into it.
Yeah,
Very good.
yeah. So I'll move that.
Second it.
You, the soccer, and second it. Now call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. Wonderful. And that will be Area C select funds.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, that's really neat. Now they've got goals. They've got, they use the 2nd soccer field is finished, but there's no goals. So
That's the way,
You don't need gold.
no, you're just kicking it.
Just kick it around.
the way of the future.
Eh?
We don't need to keep score.
Yeah, no.
Because
actually,
competition is not good for these young children.
Oh,
And what that is leading to in some areas.
tell the
they're-
World Cup folks.
No, they're playing soccer now without a ball.
Really?
It eliminates all of those challenges and,
Now that's an interesting concept.
yeah,
Is
So
that
when you just run around and kind of
hug each other?
yeah.
shin kick everybody. Nice. Well, I don't know about that, but anyways. Okay, on to 10.1. Southern Interior Local Government Association Community Excellence Awards. I think you should speak to this.
Okay. So each area association offers up these community excellence awards. You can have staff put together something if there's a project that we've done that we're particularly proud of.
Ooh,
And then you can submit it for an award, and they've got a selection committee, and it says in the letter what the recognition is, but it's usually a plaque on the wall and an embarrassing photo at the front of the convention where you all go up, and it's quite fun. It's quite fun. And it's good. I think it's just good to rally around ideas, because then other communities see, oh, that was really creative. Let's see if we can do that in our community. And so Silga does them,
Yeah.
UBCM does them, FCM does them. And it shouldn't take a lot of time. It should be a fairly straightforward report on, it can usually be like a staff report on a progress report type thing.
so UBCM also does this, so that they will be making this announcement too at some point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think we've ever participated in any of these. have we?
no, so for example, then could I put forward, say when it comes to UBCM, could I put forward how our staff has moved the Little Lake Estates thing through, or Reed Road thing through? Because those are pretty outstanding happenings, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you can use it as an opportunity to recognize staff for the hard work that they've put in.
Yeah,
Or you could use it as an opportunity to raise awareness around the fact that the Pemberton Diking Association is the last remaining diking association, and you know, they've done tremendous work on keeping flooding
Yeah.
at bay in Pemberton, that kind of thing. And so It's sort of a elevate the status of your organization opportunity.
We need to give that some serious thought, don't we? We never have.
No,
And the deadline for the UBCM one isn't until July. So
okay.
lots of time on that.
So the Silga one would be back to Sal or Vivian in their areas.
Yeah.
And then the UBCM would be,
All of us.
right on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Could be the GeoBrugnet in Britannia. It could be,
That is quite remarkable.
right?
yeah,
All of the amazing solid waste movement.
Well,
Those that
I was
we-
thinking that as well. Yeah.
Uh,
Is there another GeoBrugnet in the province? I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if there wasn't.
yeah, that's good to something to think about. So there's something for you two to think about, Sal and Vivian, for your areas. And like, yeah, I guess the timeline on that, you have to get that in as
February 1st. Oh, that's tight.
so Sal, you need to get working on this right away.
So that would have to come to the next board meeting. Then.
Yeah, we have to get in it.
I don't know that you need a resolution of the board to submit these. It doesn't say that. No, you can probably do it and,
Just put it in.
yeah. I mean, obviously you
Yeah.
want to circulate it around the board to
Yeah,
say this is what we're doing and that we're not sending in multiple competing ones.
right.
Um,
Yeah, just send one and concentrate on that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's fun though.
so I will move to receive that. Seconded.
So, sorry, so are we just leaving this for it to be done kind of behind, you know?
I don't think there's time to get staff to put a report together for this intake, but we can turn our minds to the UBCM one with a bit more advanced notice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Decision on late business. I don't believe there is any. Or was any. Late business,
No,
no.
we don't do that anymore.
Director's notice of motion, no. And this is Tony Rainbow's.
Move adjournment, please.
Very good, thank you. Meeting adjourned. Oh, I'll second it. Call the question. All in favor, opposed?
I'm opposed.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
How do you get back to whistling?
We need to document that. The chair board was opposed.
For the record.
She can stay here for the rest of the day if she likes. Okay, thank you.